Hello there. The Rwanda policy is log-jammed by unelected government lawyers and officials refusing to push the required legislation through. We really are being taken for a ride by our establishment. Whether this Tory party government is a part of it or not, we've seen mass legal and illegal inward migration with an entire legal profession ensuring it continues. All I can say is there must be a lot of money for lawyers involved in ensuring this traffic in people continues, mustn't there? And the latest twist is that government lawyers are refusing to help to put together any plans that they deem are illegal. And they specifically point at this international law thing to justify their inaction. In fact, they use international law as an excuse to completely ignore or disregard our duly elected government. So what they're now doing is refusing to help the government put together a watertight legal arrangement to ensure the Rwanda deal progresses. The civil serpents regard the plan as a gimmick, and the government lawyers are blocking any move to interfere with our full commitment to the European Convention on Human Rights, saying to do so would break international law, reports The Times. What they're actually doing is preventing Parliament from voting on government proposals, because they refuse to draft the legal papers that are needed to progress the policy. And they claim that they are bound by the Civil Service Code to not put forward papers that break international law. Now, I took a look at the Civil Service Code, and the only time the word law appears is here. You must comply with the law and uphold the administration of justice, and you should report evidence of criminal or unlawful activity to the police or other appropriate regulatory authorities. The word international does not appear, and I don't construe complying with the law as giving people the right not to help the government to change the law. And nowhere does it say that you can refuse to draft legislation that you disagree with. Now, these officials are saying the ministerial code is all important here, it must be obeyed, etc. But someone or more of them have been whispering in the ear of the press, saying such things as, the government can't legislate its way out of the Supreme Court judgment, or they're being very, very reluctant to do anything that breaches the ministerial code. Well, here's another nugget from the ministerial code. Ensure you have ministerial authorization for any contact with the media. Selective obedience to the ministerial code then. Now, not many people are aware that to advance to the upper echelons of the law and onto the judges' benches, you have to have a proven, public track record of backing wokeness to the hilt, inclusivity and equality all the way, above all else, it seems. And I would hazard a guess that those lawyers working on the government books won't want to upset their future employment opportunities by needlessly following a government non-woke policy. Would look very bad on the old CV, wouldn't it? Might not get that job in Chambers and be shunned by all their mates to boot. So you do have to wonder about motives here, don't you? But the ministerial code has this covered. You must not deceive or knowingly mislead ministers, Parliament or others, or be influenced by improper pressures from others or the prospect of personal gain, as well as the obligation to accurately present the options and facts. Now, you've probably heard of the term gold plating when it comes to the way UK law was written to comply with EU law, meaning that the UK law went further than the EU law required. Well, it's not just EU law. It also seems to have happened where the non-EU European Convention on Human Rights is concerned. But the gold plating has been attended to by the judges in our human rights courts. The ECHR lays out basic human rights, the right to life and the like. But everything seems to have been twisted to ensure criminals profit from its use. For example, the right to a family life. In the ECHR it talks about everyone has the right to respect for his private and family life, his home and his correspondence. And this is all about protection from state interference and them meddling in your affairs and poking their noses into what you're doing. It's not about stopping deportations and the like. But in the UK, this has morphed into something completely different, where it now means you have the right to bring your family to the UK and cannot ever be deported if you have some family collection here. I cannot for the life of me believe that this modern interpretation of the ECHR was in the minds of those that drafted it and signed up to it in the 1950s. Had this perverted interpretation raised its ugly head back then, I bet they'd have run a mile. And there's no mention of rubber boats or four-star hotels in the ECHR either. The ECHR seems to have changed from protecting human rights into imposing all sorts of obligations on us, the taxpayers. And now we have a recent situation where the police tried to arrest someone on a pro-Palestine march for a potential hate crime, but they were hemmed in by the baying mob and had to unarrest their prisoner and set them free. Here's what politicallight.com reported. Greater Manchester Police arrested and then de-arrested a pro-Hamas protester in Manchester city centre yesterday after a violent mob demanded he was released from a police vehicle. And the mob, many probably from a certain demographic, had the temerity to be shouting stuff like, "You can't silence our freedom of speech," when they are also doing all they can to prevent even the slightest criticism of their religion, to the point that teachers and children in the UK have to go into hiding, probably forever. Compare that to the arrest and irritant spraying of Tommy by the Met and Cheshire Police last week, and Robinson did not go to London mob-handed. The lessons here are that you cannot legislate hate away to try and enforce a cohesive society. And secondly, that appeasing the mob ends up with mob rule. Our UN and WEF-led establishment is well on its way to tearing this country apart. All aided and abetted by politicians, civil servants and other professionals, all tripping over each other to out-virtue signal everyone on the planet. And it's the poor UK-born schmuck who has their rights to go about their business in peace and safety trampled on and has to pay for it all into the bargain. Right now, despite the EU and European governments doing all they can to crack down on the far right, the people of Europe are beginning to stir. They've known what's been going on for years, what the powers that be have been up to, how they've acted in opposition to the wishes of their voters. And the people have got past the irritable stage and are starting to get angry and demanding firm action be taken. But don't think the current crop of politicians will be listening. They are too far gone down the woke drainpipe to hear anything. We need a whole new set of fresh, energetic blood and people with a single-minded UK commitment to get this country back on track.